What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. This is Michael from Karate Breakdown. My goal is to bring back practical karate, and today we're going to talk about what's the best sparring format for dojos to implement to help develop all the skill sets found in karate. If you guys don't know, karate is a clinch fighting system with takedowns, with joint lock, in addition to a long-range fighting system that you see normally with footwork, long kicks, and dashing punches. With that said, you got to figure out a sparring format that everyone can get on board with and also develop all the skills found in these katas. If you guys don't know, kata are muscle memory building tools, just like somebody who dry fires a pistol or shadow boxes. They're getting reps in a solo format, and that's what kata is for as well. My belief is you got to train like you fight. So if you're going to train kata, you got to be able to use that in a sparring and self-defense situation. A lot of schools, they train katas for belts and promotions, and then when they spar, it just looks like they're bouncing around playing tag. So you want to think about all the different ways you can spar first, and then let's see if we can kind of filter it down to probably the most effective way to spar to really make your kata shine and also to promote self-defense. The most popular one, as you guys know, it's kind of like that tag sparring from a distance. Excessive force is kind of frowned upon. You want to show some constraint or restraint. And for me, that eliminates like 90% of what karate is about. Of course, you don't want to hurt your training partner in the dojo, but if all you're doing is playing this game of tag accuracy, when the distance is closed, neither one of you guys would know what to do. Yes, there are some quick sweeps and some quick throws that people execute in tournaments, but they're not fighting and learning all the nuances of body mechanics and body shifting, weight shifting within the clinch. So there definitely has to be a clinching element to it. On the other end of the spectrum, I'm a BJJ black belt, and one of the best things about jiu-jitsu is the fact that you can roll hard. You see brand new students get good really fast comparatively to karate guys who kind of just do solo drills or doing drills down the line. They're not really testing and pressure testing these drills against a resisting opponent, at least not until you're a couple years in where you get a strong foundation underneath you. What I hear in the comments is karate takes a long time. Karate has so many things to train that you can't just rush the process. Although I understand that and I agree with that, there are better ways to train. The methodology has to be improved because you can't just fall back on, hey, it's going to take you 4, 5, 6 years to be able to relatively defend yourself, whereas somebody who goes into an MMA class, even a recreational MMA class, can be pretty competent within a couple months. They learn some punches, they learn how to clinch, they learn a few takedowns, they learn what to do on the ground. You're getting a whole plethora of skill sets in a short amount of time, and you get to spar with that, and you're not getting hurt. I feel like most karate guys use it as a cop-out to say, hey, karate takes a long time. It's skill development over years. I agree, the pursuit of perfection takes a long time. You can't have someone who's a karate black belt get pushed around by a brand new white belt who's just bigger than them, or get pushed around by an unskilled person who just watches MMA or the UFC. That's embarrassing for the art. And that's kind of where we are nowadays, where a karate black belt does not mean anything. Anyways, going back to the ground fighting, right? I wouldn't promote specifically jiu-jitsu style karate ground fighting in a sparring situation, only because you got to think about, yes, sparring is a game, but if you just treat it as a game, you start playing towards the rule set of that game. So what I mean by that is, if people start competing with pure ground fighting, which jiu-jitsu is, without the self-defense aspect of it, you have the potential to have really boring matches where somebody is up by points with 8 minutes left and they're just gonna sit on side control and just run out the clock. I know there are like stalling rules too, but that's still all subjective. And then another thing is you start playing to those rules. Let's say takedowns aren't as energy efficient as passing the guard, so you immediately sit down when the match starts. There's all these things where as competition gets greater and greater, as the stakes gets higher, people are going to start playing towards the rules. So a karate sparring format should get away from that somehow. Another thing too is playing on the ground. Yes, there are takedowns, there are strikes on the ground. A karate guy should be comfortable in the ground setting, but prioritize getting back onto their feet for the self-defense aspect, and also prioritize takedown defense so they don't end up on the ground. That does not mean don't learn ground fighting. What I meant is learn to be comfortable on the ground, but prioritize getting back up, because in self-defense, you never know who else is walking by. You never know if there's a third party. You never know if there's a weapon. If it's dark, you never know what they're going to pull out. Trying to play on the ground and be complacent is not priority, and it isn't priority for self-defense jiu-jitsu. It's just, again, in a sparring situation, you're not going to always think about self-defense. There's a spectrum to it, and variables you need to take out and add in and all that stuff. So let me recap what I've been saying. There needs to be a distance fighting aspect of it. There needs to be a clinch fighting aspect of it. There needs to be a throw takedown aspect of it, and there needs to be some type of ground fighting, but prioritize standing back up. I was thinking, how cool would it be if you started the match within the clinch with the same grips? Because if you think about, again, this is sparring in a competitive situation, not self-defense. If you guys squared off at a distance, somebody who likes the footwork, distance management, circling the ring type of meta, they're gonna be really good at that. And the other person who isn't, they might just be chasing them around as they run out the clock. On the flip side, if somebody who is not great at distance management and the other person is like an amazing wrestler, the distance is going to be closed and that person is going to be taken down immediately. What if we had each opponent start in the clinch, similar to how judo does a collar sleeve grip? You could do like collar tie wrist grip, both sides a mirror image of each other, and that's the starting point. So then it'll be up to the distance person to figure out a way to break the grips and create distance. It'll be up to the wrestler, the clinch fighting person, to figure out a way to strike within the clinch and take them down. And that's a very interesting dynamic, because for an entertainment factor, there's going to be action right off the bat, because it's not just pure throws, it's not just pure grappling. You have strikes, potential headbutts. So now let's talk about the types of strikes that are safe and also karate oriented. As you guys know, karate does have elbows and knees. It's crazy to read comments to say where people say karate doesn't have elbows. It's just the human body, guys. It's pretty amazing to read all that stuff. But anyways, I went through a few years where I was big into headbutts, and that kind of gets me into kudo. If you guys think about helmets and face shields, there's a few things I want to point out and say. A face shield, like a glass or a plastic clear face shield that protrudes a few inches in front of your face, one, it gives you a false sense of security. Two, it messes up your distance, the gauging of your distance when you strike. And what I mean by that is, like, you're gonna have to train for how to punch to the head a few inches away for sparring, and then you're gonna have to train another way on how to punch the actual head for self-defense. You're gonna have to learn how to distinguish between the two. And again, I'm big on train how you fight, and that doesn't make sense to me. Another thing too is, like, you don't get any of the human reactions when you do get punched in the face. Like, you ever get bumped on the nose, your eyes will immediately start watering. These are things like we aim for to cause a reaction. So when that doesn't happen, when you get punched straight dead center, it gives you a false sense of security to just keep blasting, right? So you see clips in kudo where guys are just like throwing haymakers back and forth, rabbit punches to the face over and over again, because there's no consequences. So there has to be something to remedy that. Of course, there has to be a way to keep everything safe, and not get CTE in the dojo. If you guys don't know, I was part of a kickboxing team back in college, and I got, probably within a semester, I got crazy punch drunk to the point where I was like, my memory and my thought process was just gone. But it was because we were wearing helmets and just punching each other in the face for like 3 days of the week for I don't know, a couple semesters straight, or a semester straight at least. Another point for like elbows and knee strikes, if you guys look at Muay Thai, a lot of those guys are prize fighters, and they're earning a wage to fight on the weekend. So they have an understood respect to not throw anything crazy during training. If you watch like real Thai fighters train, they're like playfully finding a rhythm and just working on their eyes and their reaction time. No one's going for a knockout and stuff like that, and it's because they're literally trying to they're earning their living doing that, making money doing that, right? So in addition to that, they're not throwing elbows, because the biggest thing about elbows is that they cut, even if it's a light elbow. And when they do cut like that, I mean, you're out for at least a couple of weeks with stitches and stuff, right? Generally speaking, if the elbows are thrown, it's like very slow. It's to show like you're in the clinch and the elbow is going to hit this thing, but no one's cutting with their elbows. On the karate side of things, it'll be great to have, you know, padded elbow guards, padded knee guards. And the gloves too. Have you seen those like 4 ounce gloves that are open fingerless but have like a 3 inch pad on top? I think that's probably the best thing to wear for karate sparring, just because it allows you to punch a little harder to the face, but it also lets you grab onto things too. So then you can work on your grappling and all your gi chokes and everything like that. But yeah, I'll probably cut to some clips here of me sparring at the old dojo. And it's kind of like this, where there was clinch fighting, there's fighting in the distance, there's takedowns, and then takedowns leads right into strikes, and then you let your opponent right back up. But I feel like something like that in a dojo setting across the world would just change how karate develops immediately. It would change how karate is perceived, because then it's gonna start looking like a, a more respectable MMA, which karate originally was MMA, right? Because if you guys don't know, karate was centrally located at a trade route for all the countries: Southeast China, Fujian province, Taiwan, Korea. All these people came through with their products in addition to their culture and their martial arts. And you see this in all the history books. It makes sense that you would try to incorporate as many things as you can and throw away things that don't work, especially in a self-defense situation, especially if you're training for survival. So let me know what you guys think. Is the current karate sparring format good enough? I understand there's a whole thing about tournaments and sponsorships, and there's money behind that, so that makes sense. But if you're really thinking about true skill development in all the ranges as karate has, how should sparring look in the dojo?